What is up, guys? This is Tcg Sam here, and in today's video I'm coming at you guys with a June 2021 meta tier list. So I've compiled some of the most popular and the most best decks in the format right now, as well as some surprising ones that you may not have expected, and I'm going to be ranking them in this tier list to see what I believe the meta is at the current moment. But before we begin, I just hope you guys could do me a huge favor, leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. And with that being said, let's just hop straight into it. So the very first deck is like Invoked variants, so like Invoked Mech Knight, like Invoked Dogmatica, stuff like that. The Invoked engine has always been like really decent, but like I just think in this format, it seems like a little too slow. I'm gonna put it in tier 2, and the reason I'm putting it in tier 2, like I said, it's just a little slow. It can't really compete with some of the best like combo decks out there that I'm gonna get into later on, and like it just doesn't seem to do enough. It just puts up a Mechaba or whatever Mechaba most of the time. We'll just say Mechaba, and like you have to draw really well with like other hand traps, and you have to draw the supporting engine with Invoked. That's the most important part. If you're playing like Invoked Eldlich, Invoked Dogmatica, Invoked Shaddoll, you have to draw the supporting part for the Invoked part to actually be able to help it, because just the Invoked part alone is just not going to be enough. Next up is Adamancipators. I'm gonna have to put it in Rogue. Unfortunately, they just don't do anything super well. Like they can end on still some decent boards with like Savage, Dweller, Appaloosa, stuff like that. But the problem is they all lose to Dark Ruler. And if you play the pure version, you're gonna have to rely on drawing hand traps, which can be a huge problem as well, because you're not gonna be drawing them every single time. Next up is Prank Kids. Prank Kids are really actually surprisingly doing pretty well. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the most recent remote duel qualifier or championship or whatever, but Prank Kids seem to like do pretty decently, even though it didn't make top 4. Like Prank Kids was somewhat popular, taking 3 of the 16 slots, I believe, and we were able to see like some of the power of Prank Kids. To be honest, I actually believe Prank Kids is a tier 1 deck. The reason being, every single Prank Kid is a 1-card starter that gets them into their full combo with follow-up, as well as 2 Raigekis on the board, which with the Battle Butler, which is actually pretty insane. It also allows them, they can also play around Nibiru if they choose to, and still have a follow-up play, which is really important. And they can play pretty much any hand trap aside from like Dimension Shifter or whatever. They can play like so many hand traps. They can play so many supporting cards like Mystic Mine and Cosmic Cyclone and stuff. Like that, just because since their engine is actually pretty compact, like the Prank Kid stuff might take up 2/3 of the 40 cards at most, I would say, and you can just fit in like staples and everything else in there. But yeah, Prank Kids are really good because of their 1-card combos. The only bad part about them, like the glaring problem, is that they do lose very heavily if their normal summon gets stopped in ways like Astral Skullmeister on the graveyard effect, or like Hieratic Seal on the normal summon if they don't have the fusion spell. So that's really important to keep in mind. That's when you want to be disrupting Prank Kids. Next up is Shaddoll. So like this is like Dogmatica, Invoked Shaddolls, like pure Shaddolls, whatever. I'm always like of the belief that Shaddolls like at least tier 1.5. Like obviously it's not the best deck right now, but the fact that against combo decks, like it has access to Winda obviously is really good. But the main thing like people seem to forget is like Super Poly is also super good against those decks, and Shaddoll is probably one of the best decks that can use it, allowing them to actually summon fusion monsters with like relevant effects to their engine. So like you can summon like Construct, fusing away like a light monster, or against like Drytron, against Zeus you can fuse away the Drytron and make like Shekinaga, which is like an interruption, which is actually pretty decent. And Shaddoll is of course very budget friendly. Maybe a little biased because I quite like this deck, but honestly I believe it's like at least low tier 1.5. Next up, Burning Abyss. Burning Abyss, I think I have to put it in tier 2. Burning Abyss, the only reason I actually put it in tier 2 is because it can play all those really annoying traps that your opponent might struggle to deal with, and it has very good grind game because all of their cards float, of course. So like they're able to put up a bunch of like floaters, like they put Graf, Seer, like Libic under Dante, and like Dante gets of course bonus effects when it dies pretty much. Same thing with Beatrice. Beatrice is one of the best disruptions, especially in Burning Abyss, because it allows for them to be able to just send cards like Farfall on our opponent's turn. They could play the Zombie World package, which completely shut off the Dragon Link deck, and of course the deck can make Zeus, which makes going second also a somewhat viable option. And of course they can play a bunch of hand traps. The only reason I don't put it higher is just because like I don't feel like it has that much power. Like, yes, they have Zeus and Beatrice as power cards, but like I feel like that's about it. They're more of a control style deck, but they're definitely not bad. Do not underestimate Burning Abyss. I feel like it definitely can compete. It's just maybe not right now when it maybe loses so hard to certain other decks in the meta. Next up is Zoodiac, specifically Pure Zeus. I'm going to get to Tri-Brigade Zeus when I talk about the Tri-Brigade stuff. Pure Zoodiac, like Eldlich Zoodiac, any variant that isn't like Tri-Brigade Zeus pretty much. Obviously, like, it's a pretty solid deck. I would say it's definitely tier 1.5. Zeus is just such a strong card, especially since this deck can consistently make Zeuses with like 2 or 3 sends. Like, that's just incredible. That breaks any single board. They can play all the different control cards, like in the form of hand traps. They can play floodgates if they want, and like I said, they can go first or second. And same thing as Prank Kids. All their cards are 1-card combos essentially. The only reason I don't put Zoodiacs higher is because Zoodiacs, they don't have a consistent way to get a follow-up like Prank Kids do. So when you combo with a regular Zoodiac, with just a Zoodiac monster, like you make a Trident and you set your traps, you have your hand traps, whatever, and pass. But unless you hard draw another Zoo monster, if that Trident dies, you're not gonna have a play for next turn, which is what I really don't like about the Pure Zoo deck. And that's why I think Prank Kids just have the slight edge over Pure Zoo, but definitely Pure Zoo, I would not count it out of the meta. It's a very, very strong deck. Next up is Drytrons. With the inclusion of like Mood Beta Fafnir and Diviner of the Heralds, like those are 2 very, very strong cards. Honestly, like I would put this in like tier 1. I believe that like these types of combo decks like Drytrons, where essentially you can keep going and going and going, like even through cards like Nibiru. That's what's really important. Not only does this deck have a way to play around Nibiru in Herald of Orange Light, but it also allows them to play through Nibiru sometimes. The only like problem I can see sometimes with it is it loses really, really hard to a card like Droll, Dimension Shifter, or whatever. But I mean, of course, I guess that's a weakness of like most like of these hyper combo decks. But even then, like the fact that you have built searchable hand traps like Lancia and Herald of Orange Light, I definitely don't think it should be underestimated. And of course, with Mood Beta, Fafnir, and Herald of Diviners, adds a lot of consistency to the deck, which is just really, really good. Next up is Eldlich. I think it's in the same boat as like Invoked and Burning Abyss. Like, it's just a little slow right now. Yes, it's very consistent and can grind really well, but the problem is against like its disruptions, just a pop and a banish from grave just probably aren't enough to stop some of the best decks right now. You definitely need to combine it with something like Invoked or Dogmatic or something to even just have a chance, in my opinion at least. So I'm gonna put it in tier 2 for that reason. It's not a bad deck, but it's not something I would really be scared of in this meta. Next up is Dragon Link. Without a doubt, I still think this is tier 1. Dragon Link is just super, super powerful. Pretty much these types of combo decks, like unlike Drytron, where you can play all the generic good dragon support and still be able to combo, make this deck really, really powerful. And of course, with a card like LP still around, is just really, really good. They also have access to Hieratic Seal, which is one of the best disruptions in this format. Non-targeting compulsory evacuation device is just so good against so many different decks. It has follow-ups. It has very, very powerful board start. Even with you end with like Hot Red, Seal, Appaloosa, Borolo Savage, those types of cards, and still have follow-up with like Dragon Maid Tidy against us. So that's just really, really good. It's just a really, really good deck, in my opinion. In fact, I definitely put it ahead of Prank Kids. I probably put Drytron ahead of Prank Kids as well. Prank Kids is like just at the end of tier 1, for my opinion. Next up is Guru. I think Guru has always just been like a very, very slow control deck unless you specifically draw like, I don't know, like Hidden City, Red Eyes Fusion, stuff like that. I'm gonna have to put it in Rogue category. I don't think Guru is that good of a deck. Personally, yeah, I can use Red Eyes Fusion really well. It has actually quite a few ways to get to it with like Virgin Anaconda, or with a card like, of course, just hard drawing Red Eyes Fusion. But I just think the problem with it is like it just can't go second unless you specifically draw those blowout hand traps like Dimension Shifter or Droll. So yeah, for that reason, I think I'm gonna have to put it in Rogue. I don't know if Guru takes a lot of skill. I never played the Guru deck before, but personally, I just don't feel like it's that good if it goes second. Next up, Virtual World. I think it's a tier 2 deck. It's definitely still decent, but the problem is it just loses really badly to Trident, this format. The reason I say that is because if Trident just pops the normal summon or pops like or trades with Kowloon, like that just sets the virtual world player back so far, because virtual world players need their initial summon to stick on the board and then use up all their hand effects. So like they don't really care if opponent has like one Ash or something, because like if you have multiple names you can still play. But the big problem is if you stop that normal summon, pop it, get rid of it from the field with a card like a Hermetic Seal or with Drytron, that can just completely end your turn right there if the virtual world player doesn't draw like hand traps or cards like Dark Ruler or Forbidden Droplets out the board. But definitely Virtual World's still a very, very good deck because they have access to some of the best toolboxes in the game. Next up is Altergeist. I think it's in the same boat as Guru. I just don't think Altergeist is that good. Like if it has to go second, of course these decks can be insane going first. They can open like some really nasty traps and floodgates, and they can completely shut off an opponent's turn. But the big problem with Altergeist, same with Guru, is that it can't really go second unless you draw hand traps. I even think Guru has an edge over Altergeist because like they have access to Red Eyes Fusion, and that can sometimes carry them in a game. But Altergeist doesn't really have. I haven't seen many Altergeist players go that route. So for that reason, I think Guru is even just slightly better than Altergeist. Next up is Dinos. This actually got second in the remote duel qualifiers, and I think without a doubt it is definitely a tier 1 deck up there with like stuff like the Dragon Links, the Drytrons, and Frankens. I definitely think it's up there with them, especially because now they have Scrap Raptor. Scrap Raptor allows them to access a very, very strong going first play, which is something they never had before. And like if you guys have never played against Dinos before, I will tell you Miscellaneous is absolutely disgusting. That card is so good. It's not only is it like a pretty much called by the grave for entire main phase, it also gives you access to Archosaur, which is one of your best cards in your deck. Of course, this deck can go second as well because this deck inherently is just really good at going second with cards like Lost World and stuff. But even going first now with Scrap Raptor, like I said, they can still put up some pretty nasty boards. So for that reason, definitely tier 1. Next up, Sky Strikers. It's going in Rogue. I honestly don't know why people still play this deck. If you want to play Control, there are better Control decks out there. I just really don't think Sky Strikers are that good in this meta. I know people like the deck, but personally, I just feel like they don't do enough, especially with so many of their power cards like limited. Like I would just say multi-roll. Maybe if they had like more multi-rolls, it'd be possible. But who knows? Sky Striker, I think, just heavily relies on cards like Mystic Mine and stuff to be able to stall out the game long enough so they can control it well enough. But I just feel like most of the time, they won't be able to break boards, they won't be able to make boards. Next up is like Phantom Knights. This has actually fallen off quite a bit. I haven't seen many people playing Phantom Knights, but I definitely don't think it's a bad deck. Like it still has the potential to put up a bunch of negates with like Arc Rebellion and stuff. Bardiche is a very, very monstrous card. It is incredibly, incredibly good. But it is just up there with like Virtual World and like Invoked and stuff. It's decent, but I just feel like there are better decks out there in this meta. I have nothing too bad to say about it though, other than the fact that it loses to Lancia, which is something a lot of people are going to be citing for Tri-Brigade, so that's going to kind of overlap and hurt Phantom Knights as well. And you don't want a deck that like kind of loses to the same hand traps as like the tier 1 decks, because people are going to be citing for them. And speaking of tier 1 decks, Tri-Brigade Zeus, specifically this build, I would have to say it's probably the best deck, right behind, like, right up there. I would say, like, these three, like, Dragon Link, Tri-Brigade Zoo, and Drytron are about equal as being the best decks in the meta right now. Tri-Brigade Zoo, for those of you who may have been living under a rock, Bear Bloom is a very, very strong card that allows you to have a Shrek on your opponent's turn with a bunch of follow-up with, like, Nerval and Kit and stuff, which is just super, super good. Of course, you have the Zoodiac engine, so you have all the benefits of the Zoo engine with like Dryden and Zeus, but you also have the Tri-Brigade engine to like put up more interruptions like the Double Dragon Lords and the Revolt on your opponent's turn. And for that reason, I just think it's a really, really powerful tier 1 deck that's like up here with all these tier 1 decks. Finally, Salamangreat, I think it has to just be Rogue. The only reason I included it is because it's a very decent budget deck. So if you guys are wanting to start playing Yu-Gi-Oh on a budget, Salamangreat's a pretty easy deck to understand. Pretty simple game plan, honestly. It's definitely still has some power plays because of how powerful the Cyber Link monsters are. You're able to make cards like Update Jammer, which can allow your Access Go Talker to attack twice, or it can allow your, let's say your Topologic Zero Boros to attack twice. It allows your Borolo Dragon to attack twice. Just be aware that even though this deck isn't like the greatest, it has access to the best extra deck monsters in the game, being the Cyber Link monsters. But yeah, those are just some of my thoughts on this meta. I believe that these 5 decks are the top 5 right now, followed closely by like Pure Zoos and Shaddolls. Let me know if I missed anything in the comments below. Let me know if you guys agree with this list, what you would change, what you think is good. Do let me know in the comments below. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you did. And with that, I will see you guys soon. Take care.